My sister had a baby despite her financial struggles, and now she wants me to cover her rent. I refused, and suddenly I'm the villain of the family. A few days ago, I refused to help my sister and her husband financially, and now my entire family is upset with me because of it. But honestly, I can't understand what I did wrong, so here I am. The reason I decided not to help my sister and her husband is that I initially advised them against something they chose to do, so I don't feel like I owe them anything since they clearly ignored my advice. She and my brother-in-law have been together for 8 years. They're both 23 and got married about a year ago. Neither of them was particularly interested in college, and their only real plan for the future was to get married after graduation and find a job. After they were both hired by the same company for administrative tasks, they got engaged, and soon after, they also got married. Now, I've never said anything about my sister's life, but every time she talked to me, I always tried to advise her to save for the future because she and her husband were living recklessly. But she always ignored my advice and kept living her way, constantly going out to eat and party, buying expensive clothes and other things they couldn't afford. She and her husband liked living beyond their means, and honestly, if that's how they wanted to live, that was their personal choice. I could only advise them, but I couldn't stop them from doing what they wanted. But from what I'd observed with most people who lived similarly, it was bound to blow up one day. And when that day came, I knew I wouldn't help them because I had always advised against that kind of lifestyle. Yet they always ignored me. So when she casually told me she was planning to have a baby, I thought it was really risky because she was very young. I didn't think they had much savings, and once you have a child, you can't keep living the way they had been. I told her to think it through several times, but she said she would be fine. She had thought about it, and although she was struggling financially at the time, she knew she would have saved enough by the time the baby was born. She claimed she was getting bored with her life and knew that having a baby was exactly what she needed to complete her family at that moment. Since she was young and healthy, there was no better time to get pregnant than right now. So she went ahead with her plans and actively tried to get pregnant until she succeeded. For context, even when she told me she was going to try to get pregnant, I advised against it because I knew they were struggling financially. My parents told me she had been borrowing a lot of money from them since her husband wasn't on good terms with his in-laws, and they said they were worried about her. That's why I felt it was my duty as her older brother to warn her against getting pregnant since I knew she wasn't in a good financial position. So that has made my parents' stance on the current situation even more confusing to me, as after I refused to help my sister with rent, they stopped talking to me. Anyway, I even congratulated them and was very happy for my sister and her husband when they announced their pregnancy because I thought they would finally start behaving responsibly and saving for the future. But even after that, they continued living extravagantly. In the first few months of her pregnancy, I kept reminding her that she needed to save money for after the baby was born, but after a while, she became really sensitive about it and told me I didn't need to worry and that she had everything planned out. So that was my cue to keep my mouth shut because she clearly didn't want to hear my advice anymore. After that, I only talked to her about safe topics and didn't try to give her any more advice. Recently, exactly what I feared happened. They were running out of money for this month. My sister could have borrowed money from our parents, but she had already borrowed so much from them that this time they had to put their foot down. Since they're both retired and can't keep wasting money on her, and she already owed them a lot, she came to me for help. My sister visited me a couple of days ago and told me that since her baby was born 2 months ago, all her money has gone toward raising the baby, and she has barely spent anything on herself. So she was very confused about why she and her husband were still struggling to come up with enough money for rent. I was confused about why she was confused, as the reason they were struggling to cover rent was very clear to me. They never cared to save enough money for the future and had lived recklessly despite my constant warnings and reminders. They never took my advice seriously and decided to live their way. They spent all their money on themselves, and now they had no one to rely on. My sister tried asking me for help with this month's rent and said she would pay me back as soon as possible, but I refused. I said that since she already owed our parents a lot of money, if she couldn't even afford that right now, it was very unlikely she would be able to pay me back anytime soon. I knew that, just like she did with our parents, she would also make a habit of this. Maybe my parents could accept it since they're softer and had earned enough money in their lifetime to give her some whenever she needed it, but I couldn't. I'm only 26 and saving for my future. Plus, I had always warned her that her lifestyle would catch up to her one day, and that's exactly what happened. So I really don't feel obligated to help her, and I told her she had to think of another solution since this definitely wasn't going to work. Obviously, we had a huge fight that day, and she called me every name in the book. She said I was selfish, greedy, and just jealous that she had been living better than me despite her lower income. She also told me that the reason I would never find anyone was precisely this: the fact that I don't even know how to live in the moment and am too self-centered to care about others. I expected her to be quite nasty after I refused to help, and she met those expectations, so I wasn't surprised, but I also wasn't going to stay silent. So I snapped back immediately, and the argument lasted about 15 minutes before I asked her to leave my house. After she left, I blocked her number so she couldn't even call me. She didn't, but my parents did later that night. When they called, I honestly expected them to say I did the right thing, that they also scolded her, and that they apologized. Instead, they started yelling at me, saying I was a terrible person for treating her that way, and that the least I could have done was help her. I found it very unfair of them to say that since initially they were the ones who insisted I talk to her about her spending habits and try to get her to change. I was really confused, and I told them that I had always warned her against reckless spending and had even told her not to get pregnant at that time since she wasn't financially stable. It would be a different situation if she had fallen on hard times despite doing everything she could to avoid it. But that wasn't the case here. She created this situation on purpose, and now she had to deal with the consequences. But instead of trying to understand my point of view, my parents stood firm in their beliefs and said they were shocked that I refused to help my sister in such a difficult situation. Then they gave me an ultimatum: either I send money to my sister and apologize for my behavior, or they would cut me off from the family. I was very upset. I accused them of favoring her over me and told them that if they wanted to cut me off, I would be happy because at least I would have the satisfaction of knowing I did the right thing and didn't have to betray my principles. They tried to turn it around and make it seem like I was the bad guy because my principles were more important than my family, but honestly, they were being irrational. Anyway, a few days have passed since then. I blocked my sister and my parents blocked me, so I haven't been in contact with any of them. I keep thinking about what happened, trying to figure out who was really at fault here. Personally, I still believe it was my sister's fault, and that my parents are spoiling her by making her feel justified in asking for borrowed money. My parents are well aware that I'm saving money, yet they still didn't think it was reasonable for me to refuse to help her. I've noticed that most of my other relatives have also unfollowed me on social media or have started blocking me. I feel really alone because I don't have many friends, as I'm a bit introverted, and even though I didn't used to be in touch with my family every day, at least I knew I had the option to talk to them whenever I wanted. Now, however, I feel really insensitive, empty, and alone, and that's even more reason for me to question whether I did the right thing by refusing to help my sister. Because even though that would have compromised everything I stand for, at least I would still have my family by my side. It's not even that my sister and I had a terrible relationship. We used to talk quite often on the phone and would meet up a couple of times a month. I was also close enough to my parents, so I really miss them now. Apart from her relationship with money, my sister was a good person and we got along well. In fact, I'd say that the way she used to live beyond her means all the time was the only point of friction between us. But aside from that, we were always best friends. As for my parents, it's not even that they had always favored my sister over me, or that she had been the golden child or anything. They treated us fairly equally while we were growing up, and that's why I think I'm so surprised by this turn of events right now. Maybe it's because she now has a baby, and that's why things are so different. I'm not sure, but I guess everyone expected me to be lenient with them since she had just given birth a couple of months ago, and that's what has made everyone even angrier with me. So, what do you guys think about this? Am I the bad guy for telling my sister that I won't help her with rent because it's her fault she can't cover it? Update 1. A lot of people had issues with the tone I used in my post. I'm sorry if it seemed like I was being arrogant, but honestly, I didn't mean for it to come across that way. While writing it, I was obviously somewhat upset with my family, and I think that translated into the tone I used. Most people have said I sounded like one of those people who say, "I told you so," and maybe I am one of those people. But I'm so exhausted with all this drama that I didn't bother putting on a nice tone. Anyway, regardless of my tone, people have agreed that I don't have to help my sister because it's my money, and I don't owe her anything. Maybe the situation would have been different if she had genuine reasons to spend money, and perhaps I would have helped her, but not now. So, I guess I'll continue missing my family since I don't think they're going to apologize to me or even try to make amends. I'm pretty sure they've spread this story among other relatives, which is why no one wants to talk to me. But that's okay. I wasn't that close to them anyway. It just feels bad knowing that my entire family is against me right now, even though I haven't exactly done anything wrong. Everyone just wants a scapegoat, and I guess that's me right now. That's fine, they can blame me for now, but at some point, they'll have to face reality, and soon they'll turn against each other. My parents find it easy to support my sister now because she is currently busy blaming me for not helping her, and all her anger is directed at me. But from what I know, I'm sure that very soon she'll also start getting upset with our parents and start demanding that they give her the money I didn't give her. Because one way or another, she will definitely have to find a way to pay rent, and if she doesn't, that won't end well for her. Eventually, she will realize that not even our parents will give her the money, even though they're supporting her now. Things will get ugly, and I know that for a fact. Then I'll just sit back and watch the drama with popcorn. Update 2. Recently, one of my cousins decided to contact me and tell me exactly what my parents and my sister had been saying about me, and well, it's nothing good. I assumed they were just spreading the story about me, and that the story itself was enough to turn everyone against me. But apparently they twisted some facts to make me look even worse. I really don't understand why they would do something like that because I can't imagine what they gain from ruining my reputation. As things stand, I don't have a close relationship with the rest of my family. It's a relief that my cousin decided to reach out to me and ask me what was going on, what he had heard from his mother about me, and what my parents had been saying behind my back. He couldn't believe it and had to talk to me about it. If he hadn't reached out to discuss this with me, I probably wouldn't have been able to clear things up at any point, and people would have continued believing my parents and my sister. Anyway, regarding what they said, they made it seem like I was the one who had encouraged my sister to start a family when she had the idea, and that I had even promised to help her whenever she needed it. And for the record, obviously, no such thing ever happened. I can't count how many times I tried to dissuade her from actively trying to get pregnant. Naturally, my sister came to ask me for help when she realized she was going to struggle to cover rent this month. But when that happened, I supposedly completely changed my mind and decided not to help her. That's why she was upset, because I had promised her something and was now breaking my word. Not only did they lie about this, but they also said something even worse about me. Apparently, a couple of months ago, while she was pregnant, I had borrowed money from her and had promised to pay it back. Apparently, I'd taken that money to pay off some personal debts, and she suspected it was due to alcoholism or gambling. She claimed that, even though she was pregnant and knew she would need the money in the future, she didn't think twice before giving it to me. And despite that, I was being so ungrateful now. The accusations of alcoholism and gambling aren't that hard to believe because, as I said, I'm a bit of a loner, and I think anyone in my situation would find it very easy to become addicted. But I only drink at parties, and even then I try to hold back because I hate getting hungover, and I have never gambled in my life, so for her to say something so horrible about me is just cruel at this point. These are the rumors she has spread, but on top of that, she has also been telling everyone that I'm simply jealous of her lifestyle, and that's why I refuse to help her. Once again, I think people would find that very easy to believe because I live alone. I haven't had a stable girlfriend in a couple of years. I don't go out very often, and I don't have many friends either. So, I heard from my cousin that most of the people who unfollowed or blocked me did it out of loyalty to my sister, since she gets along quite well with the rest of our family. And apparently, they've been making fun of me behind my back for years. At least before, I had my sister to defend me, but now she's joined in on the mockery. Most of them think I'm a huge loser, and I guess a lot of them were happy to have an excuse to remove me from their social media. Something like this might have bothered me back in high school, but now, honestly, I don't care. I think it speaks more about their character than mine because, at least, this is the lifestyle I have chosen for myself. People might not approve of it, they might not think I'm making the most of my life, and they might even think I'm a loser, but I truly don't care. I never have. And I'm not going to start changing my lifestyle now just to impress a bunch of strangers. The few friends I do have mean the world to me, and I know they'd say the same about me. I don't even need to see them every other day to make sure we're still friends, it's just a fact. And I don't care about not having a partner right now. I've gone on a few dates, but at the moment, I just want to be alone. I know what my goals are, and I'm working towards them, which is more than they can say for themselves. Most of them still rely on their parents for money, and I guess the reason they hate me so much is because they're so unhappy and insecure about their own lives that they can't help but mock me for being content with mine. I just expected my sister to be different, that's all. But this will teach me not to have expectations from my family at all. Anyway, after finding all this out, I don't feel regretful about what I did at all. I'm really glad I refused to help her. She definitely doesn't deserve it, and I hope my parents stay out of my life as well. I'm also really grateful to my cousin for telling me all of this. I guess he's the only normal person in this family of weirdos. Update 3. I really didn't expect my last update to go so viral, but I'm very glad so many of you resonated with my situation. It's been a tough couple of weeks, but I'm doing fine. It's been almost 15 days since I last spoke to my sister or my parents, and although I haven't been bothering them, something happened last night that I'll tell you about below. At first, it felt extremely lonely, but then I went out with my friends a few days ago, and I feel like I'm going to be okay. I told them everything about what happened with my family, and they told me not to worry, that I'm better off without them, and I really agree with that. In fact, I've been feeling much better without them these past few days. The initial sadness has faded, and I've also blocked every family member on all social media platforms. I also blocked their numbers so that none of them can contact me, even if they wanted to. It's unlikely that they will, but it gave me a sense of closure that I really needed. I'm really happy to have removed them, not just from social media, but from my life, because they keep sinking lower every day. So, what happened last night was that I had just gotten home from work and was putting away the breakfast dishes I had left drying when I heard someone ring the doorbell. When I went out to check, there was no one there. Still, I opened the door and realized that someone had left a bag of stuff on the porch. When I picked it up, I noticed it was pretty light, and when I opened it, I was surprised to find a bunch of gifts I had given my sister during her baby shower. It was mostly baby clothes, a few toys, and some baby books. She had returned them all, without a note or anything. I thought it was completely unnecessary because, even though we were fighting, I didn't see any reason for her to discard the things I had bought for my nephew. At first, I was furious, but then I just got really sad because this was so petty and low. I couldn't imagine anyone else doing this. But that's just who she is, and I'm pretty sure when she discussed it with my parents, they must have approved. It was really disheartening, and I didn't even feel right throwing the stuff away, so I just stuffed it in a corner of my closet where I wouldn't have to see it. They belong to my nephew, and the poor kid hasn't done anything wrong. He's just caught up in a web of unnecessary family drama. I would have felt bad throwing away his stuff. Anyway, that's how I handled the situation, and I really hope that after this, she doesn't do anything else. It's just become really hard for me to respect them as human beings. Update 4. It's been almost a month since my last update, and I'm not happy to share this, but things played out exactly as I predicted. Since my sister no longer had me to blame for her situation, she turned against our parents. I guess they had a fight or something because, from what I've heard, they're now criticizing each other too. At least my sister can be excused because she's young and naive, but I don't think my parents have any excuse for ruining their relationships with both of their children. That's truly poetic in my opinion. From what my cousin has told me, my sister has been telling everyone that our parents are just as bad as I am because they haven't been helping her either. My parents in turn have been saying that they spoiled both of us, and that's why neither of us is grateful for anything. I don't even care what they say about each other anymore because, at least, I managed to clear things up by telling my cousin the truth. He told his mom, and some people in the family have apologized to me. Honestly, it doesn't mean much because it doesn't affect my life in any way. I just didn't want anyone to get away with lying about me, so that's why I bothered to tell my cousin the truth. At least now, I'm done with my family, and they can keep fighting amongst themselves. In a way, I'm really glad I had that argument with them because it revealed their true character to me. Even though I really don't want to be the guy who says, "I told you so," I can't help it if they're so predictable. I don't want to sound arrogant right now. It's just how the situation turned out, and I find it really funny. Update 5. Well, guys, I didn't think I'd be back with another update so soon, but here we are. Just when I thought things were settling down, I got some news that really surprised me. Turns out my sister and her husband are now living with our uncle, the father of my cousin, the one who's been keeping me updated on everything happening in the family. My cousin mentioned it casually in a conversation, like it was the most normal thing in the world. He told me that apparently they couldn't afford a couple of months of rent and got evicted. So she ended up asking our uncle for help. The ironic part is that this uncle was one of the people who criticized me, so now he has to deal with the problem himself. Maybe this will teach him a lesson, or maybe not, but it's not like my sister has many places left to go. She's burned bridges with me and our parents, so the list of relatives willing to take in a family with a baby is getting smaller by the day. I know many people are wondering why my sister doesn't just move to a cheaper place if she can't afford where she was living. The reason is that she has a lot of credit card debt from her lifestyle, and she still doesn't seem to have toned it down much. She has bought expensive branded items for her baby, so you can see that the pattern continues with her. If I find out anything else about my sister, rest assured that you will get an update. You deserve it for following my posts. Update 6. Well, this update is about my parents. My cousin, the same one who has been keeping me informed about everything happening in the family, recently contacted me with some news. My parents want to talk to me to try and mend things between us. Apparently, after my sister moved in with our uncle and things started falling apart between them, my parents have begun to reconsider the situation. According to my cousin, they've realized that maybe they were too harsh on me and now want to make amends. Yes, the same parents who said those things about me, who spread lies and practically banished me from the family when I refused to give in to their demands. The fact that now, after all the damage they've done, they want to fix things, seems a bit absurd to me. My cousin told me that my parents claim to be truly sorry and that they just want a chance to talk to me, apologize, and somehow get back on good terms. He even mentioned that they had unblocked me on their phones and had tried sending me some messages to express their remorse. Out of curiosity, I checked my phone and saw that there were indeed several messages from my parents. I read them, but I felt nothing, no anger, no sadness, not even relief, just a big void. The truth is that, after everything that happened, I have no interest in rekindling a relationship with them. If I've learned anything from this whole situation, it's that there are certain lines that should never be crossed. And they didn't just cross them, they completely trampled over them. So I blocked them. I don't want them to keep sending me messages or trying to come back into my life. I hadn't done it before because they had already done it to me, but I don't think there's a better time than now. I thanked my cousin for being the messenger in all of this and made it clear that it wasn't his fault, but I simply wasn't interested in reconciling with my parents. He understood and supported me. Update 7. I knew forgiving my parents would be a huge mistake, and luckily, I didn't do it. Well, I wouldn't call it luck, because there was never a chance I would forgive them, but now you'll understand why I say that. In short, my parents have taken my sister and her family into their home. Yes, after everything they said to each other, they're now playing happy family. It seems like no one in my family has any self-respect because they've forgiven each other as if nothing happened. Even some relatives have started to notice this whole dynamic, including my uncles, the same ones who practically kicked my sister out of their house. Well, they didn't exactly kick her out, but they did ask her to leave. The longer version is that my uncles got tired of them. First, because they didn't contribute much around the house, neither with chores nor financially. On top of that, a crying baby at night wasn't something they wanted to go through again. All their kids are already grown, and they don't want to relive that stage. So they asked them to leave, though I don't know the details because my cousin wasn't home when it happened since he doesn't live with them. So, miraculously, my sister and my parents made up. I imagine they must have asked her in-laws for help, but they certainly said no, otherwise they would have moved in with them. I doubt my parents were the first option, but pride doesn't matter when you have nowhere to sleep, I guess. The good thing is that now my uncles have seen my sister for who she is, and while that doesn't fix things between us, at least it feels good. Even my cousin told me that they've spoken badly about my parents and my sister, which doesn't surprise me. I don't know how long this arrangement between my parents and my sister will last, but I think this will be my last update. I don't think Reddit would be too interested in a new update every time my sister moves, especially when she does it as often as she changes underwear, as the saying goes. Edit. I almost forgot. For those asking what I did with the gifts my sister returned, I donated them to charity. I figured someone else could put them to better use and wouldn't turn their nose up at them like she did. I still don't know why she returned them. While I think she did it out of anger at me, I read a comment suggesting that it might have been because they weren't name brand, which would make sense, because while they weren't cheap, they weren't the kind of things she usually buys. Update 8. Since many people have been asking where my sister is living now, I've had to come back with a new update. It's been almost a year since my last update here, but that's because nothing has changed. My sister is still living with my parents, and that's pretty much it. I just hope she's changed her underwear in all that time, because if not, that would be really disgusting. Just referencing my joke from the previous update. There hasn't been anything noteworthy to share about my family during this time.